If I were 25 again, I wouldn't waste a single second on nonsense. Most people at that age think the world owes them something. They chase the wrong dreams, listen to the wrong people, and sabotage their own future. At 25, the first lesson you must learn is brutal honesty. The only person responsible for your life is you, not your parents, not your friends, not the market, not luck. You, period. I've seen countless young people stumble because they think cleverness or ambition alone will make them rich. It won't. Intelligence without discipline is worthless. Energy without direction is wasted. At 25, you have the time and potential, but every mistake you make compounds. The habits you form now will either multiply wealth or multiply failure. That's reality. So, if I had to start over, I'd focus on one thing first: destroying the wrong ideas. Most people are broke because they carry myths in their head. I need a big job to get rich. Wrong. I need to follow the crowd. Wrong. I'll figure it out later. Wrong. Every wasted year from believing lies costs you decades of compounded advantage. At 25, you must confront reality, even when it's ugly. You need a blueprint, not a pep talk. And that's what I'm giving you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do if I could do it over, step by step. Every idea, every habit, every mental model that I would use to ensure a lifetime of wealth, freedom, and rational control over my life. No fluff, no sugar, no excuses. This is as raw and direct as I can be. If I were 25 again, the very first thing I would do is audit my mind. Every assumption I had, every habit I carried, every belief I nurtured would be on trial. Most people don't do this. They take their thinking for granted. They assume their ideas are correct because they are easy or popular. That is a recipe for mediocrity and financial disaster. Start with this. Kill your bad ideas. Every myth you've absorbed about money, success, and life must be questioned. For example, the idea that you need a high-paying job immediately. At 25, that is a trap. You should instead focus on building skills that can earn 10x more over time, not a title that impresses friends. Your income at 25 is far less important than your earning capacity at 35, 45, and 55. Next, understand the importance of mental models. At 25, your brain is malleable. You can learn the frameworks that guide the decisions of the richest people in the world. Incentives, opportunity cost, compounding, probability. These aren't abstract concepts. They are weapons. Learn them, apply them, and you will see mistakes others make clearly before they even happen. Stop chasing short-term excitement. At 25, most people are impulsive. They follow trends, hype, and advice from people with no skin in the game. If I were 25, I would ignore 90% of the noise. Focus only on what has long-term payoff. Investments, skills, relationships, and discipline compound. Everything else decays. I would also read relentlessly. Knowledge is not optional. At 25, you can absorb more than at any other point in your life. But don't read like a tourist. Read like a strategist. Study the work of successful investors, entrepreneurs, and thinkers. Understand history, human behavior, and the patterns that repeat over decades. Reading at 25 compounds into wisdom at 35, 45, 55. That wisdom pays far more than money you earn now. Discipline is non-negotiable. If I were 25 again, I would create systems for everything. Systems for saving money, for learning, for daily decisions. Humans are not naturally rational. Our instincts are flawed. Systems protect you from yourself. They prevent mistakes that compound into massive losses. Start now. The habit of discipline at 25 compounds over decades in ways that luck cannot replicate. Another critical point: Choose your environment and circle of influence wisely. Your friends, colleagues, and mentors shape your thoughts and your habits. Most people sabotage themselves because they allow the wrong people to dominate their time. If I were 25 again, I would ruthlessly prune my social circle. I would spend time only with disciplined, rational, and ambitious individuals. That alone will accelerate your growth more than any investment. Understand risk and probability. At 25, most people underestimate the cost of mistakes. A poor decision can take decades to recover from. I would avoid stupid mistakes above all else. Avoid debt traps. Avoid speculative nonsense. And avoid get-rich-quick schemes. Avoiding stupidity compounds far more effectively than chasing brilliance. Finally, I would take action relentlessly, but intelligently. Analysis without execution is useless, and action without analysis is reckless. At 25, I would start small, build a track record of correct decisions, and iterate. Every small success compounds into credibility, wealth, and opportunity. If I were 25, I would also cultivate patience. Most young people want everything now. I would understand that wealth, skill, and reputation take decades to build. Patience allows you to avoid impulsive mistakes, to let compounding work, and to see the long-term results of every choice. Here's the brutal truth. Most people at 25 fail because they overestimate themselves and underestimate time. If I were 25 again, I would know that every day, every choice, and every habit either builds my future or erodes it. I would eliminate distractions, avoid bad advice, and focus only on what truly matters. I would start investing in myself first. Skills, knowledge, health, and networks, these are assets that compound faster than any stock. If I built a foundation at 25, money would follow naturally. If I ignored it, decades of wasted opportunity would follow. The world rewards those who prepare long before they are ready to receive. Now that I've cleaned up my thinking, eliminated bad habits, and built mental clarity, the next step at 25 is building the financial engine. Most people fail because they never learn how to convert knowledge and energy into real income. At 25, I would focus on 3 pillars: skills, income, and the first $100,000. Point 1. Skills that compound at 25. The skills you acquire are far more important than the money you earn immediately. Not just any skills that generate leverage. Financial analysis, investing, coding, sales, writing, and understanding human behavior are the most powerful. Why? Because they produce results that others cannot easily replicate. If you have these skills, money is not scarce, it follows you. I would attack skill building with intensity. No distractions, no shortcuts. Every hour spent improving skills compounds into decades of advantage. I would seek feedback relentlessly and measure results. A small improvement each day multiplies over time. 2. Earning aggressively, but smartly at 25. Most people settle for the paycheck in front of them. I would do the opposite. Find work that leverages my skills and offers opportunity for growth and compounding. Every project, every deal, every investment in experience is a step toward the first $100,000. Forget comfort. Forget vanity. Focus on value creation. 3. Saving ruthlessly and investing intelligently. Saving is mandatory. Spending on appearances is forbidden. Every dollar saved early compounds into power later. The first $100,000 is not just money, it is a proof of your system. It proves that you can earn, save, and invest rationally. I would focus on simple, long-term investments, stocks, businesses, or partnerships that create real value. No speculation, no gambling. 4. Multiple streams of income. Wisely, I would create parallel income streams that scale. Not dozens of side hustles, but meaningful channels that leverage skills and knowledge. Consulting, small businesses, royalties, investments all strategically chosen. Diversification is not chaos. It is a defense and accelerator for long-term wealth. 5. Opportunity cost awareness. Every hour wasted, every dollar spent poorly, every toxic relationship destroys compounding potential. At 25, I would ruthlessly prune distractions. Focus only on what multiplies income, skill, or value over decades. 6. Mentorship and learning from the wise. I would attach myself to mentors smarter and wealthier than me. Most 25-year-olds follow peers, they copy mediocrity. Seek mentors, absorb frameworks, avoid mistakes they warn about. A single lesson can save years and tens of thousands of dollars. 7. Decision-making under uncertainty. Most 25-year-olds fear mistakes. I would do the opposite. I would calculate, test, fail cheaply, learn, and move forward. Wealth compounds through intelligent decision-making, not luck. Courage plus rationality equals compounding advantage. 8. Tracking, discipline, and positioning. I would track every dollar, measure every result, and optimize relentlessly. I would use 25 to 35 to position myself for long-term wealth, relationships, skills, investments, and routines. Every choice magnified by decades compounds advantage. At 25, I would understand that wealth is not built randomly. It's the product of systems, discipline, and compounding. Most people rely on willpower or luck, and that's why they fail. I would do the opposite. I would build mechanical systems that enforce good decisions automatically, long before emotions or impulses get in the way. 1. Systems for everything. I would create systems for earning, saving, investing, learning, and networking. For example, every paycheck would be split automatically. A portion for a living, a portion for investments, a portion for reinvestment in skills. Decisions wouldn't be left to chance or mood. Systems reduce mistakes and create predictable compounding over decades. 2. Discipline over willpower. Willpower fails under stress. Systems work even when motivation disappears. I would cultivate a daily routine that reinforces discipline. Reading, learning, tracking finances, and analyzing opportunities. At 25, habits form faster and compound longer. Discipline at 25 multiplies wealth and freedom for decades. 3. Compounding across every area. The power of compounding is not just financial, it applies to skills, habits, knowledge, and relationships. At 25, I would invest in every area consistently, even when results seem small. A single habit maintained daily compounds exponentially over time. Small choices repeated correctly are more powerful than occasional brilliance. 4. Decision prioritization. Most people waste energy on trivial choices. I would ruthlessly prioritize, focus on actions that generate maximum leverage, and ignore distractions. At 25, learning what not to do is just as important as learning what to do. Avoid trivial decisions. Focus on decisions that affect decades of life. 5. Avoiding overconfidence. Young people tend to overestimate themselves. I would build checks and balances, learning to question assumptions, seek counsel, and consider probabilities before taking action. Systems, accountability, and rational thinking reduce mistakes. 6. Tracking and feedback. I would measure results daily, weekly, and monthly. Track investments, skills growth, habits, and productivity. Feedback loops compound advantage. Ignoring feedback is like driving blind. At 25, creating these loops early produces exponential growth. 7. Long-term positioning. Every system, habit, and decision at 25 would aim to position me for a financial freedom and influence decades later. I would align my efforts so that every choice supports my long-term trajectory, not instant gratification, not temporary success, but compounding advantage. 8. Avoiding complexity. Simplicity is powerful. I would avoid unnecessary complexity in investments, systems, or business. Complexity creates errors and drains energy. Simplicity allows execution, scalability, and longevity. The first rules of wealth at 25. Keep it simple. Automate and repeat. Point 9. Patience. Most young people want results now. I would embrace patience. Systems compound slowly at first, but over decades, the results are extraordinary. If I maintained the discipline to let time amplify my efforts, by 35 I'd be far ahead of my peers. By 45 exponentially ahead, and by 55 financially and strategically untouchable. At 25. I would know that most failures are not caused by bad luck, they are caused by stupidity and poor judgment. The smartest person with discipline and patience outperforms the most talented person who ignores reality. If I were 25 again, I would ruthlessly avoid the traps that destroy young people. 1. Debt and leverage mistakes. Debt is a silent killer. Most young people take on debt for cars, vacations, or luxury items they cannot afford. At 25, I would avoid all non-productive debt. Leverage is only useful when it multiplies productive assets, not consumption. Mistakes in borrowing compound faster than growth in earnings. 2. Speculation versus investment. Speculation is the fastest path to disaster. At 25, I would distinguish clearly between investing in value and gambling on hype. Most young people chase trends, cryptocurrencies, and get-rich-quick schemes. I would focus on rational, patient, and compounding investments. Risk is not eliminated, but it is managed intelligently. 3. Emotional spending and status traps. The desire to look rich is lethal. Young people buy things to impress peers instead of building real wealth. At 25, I would ignore appearances completely. Every dollar spent on status is a dollar not compounding. Focus on assets, not vanity. Status is a byproduct of discipline and wealth, not a cause. 4. Toxic relationships and influence. Your circle shapes your decisions, habits, and mindset. Most young people maintain relationships that sabotage their growth. I would ruthlessly prune my social environment. Friends who encourage poor spending, laziness, or short-term thinking are dangerous. Surround yourself with disciplined, intelligent, and ambitious people. 5. Ignoring long-term consequences. Many 25-year-olds ignore the long-term consequences of decisions. One poor choice today, be it financial, legal, or personal, can take decades to recover. I would always think in decades, not months. Every action, every habit, every dollar is magnified over time. 6. Overconfidence and impulsivity. Youth is filled with overconfidence. I would temper it with rationality. I would calculate probabilities, test ideas cheaply, and avoid emotional decisions. Impulsive mistakes compound into catastrophic losses. Patience and rationality multiply advantage. 7. Failure to learn from others. Most people ignore history and other people's mistakes. At 25, I would study the errors of others, dissecting financial collapses, business failures, and personal missteps. Learning from others saves decades of trial and error. Avoid stupidity by observing the consequences before you experience them yourself. 8. Avoiding lifestyle inflation. Income grows with skill, but spending often grows faster. At 25, I would maintain frugality and discipline, ensuring that rising earnings compound into assets rather than liabilities. The difference between wealth and mediocrity is often what you don't spend. 9. Protecting reputation and integrity. At 25, short-term shortcuts often seem tempting. Bending rules, exaggerating skills, or taking unethical shortcuts. I would avoid them all. Reputation compounds over time. One mistake can destroy decades of work. Integrity is a rare and valuable asset. Guard it fiercely. 10. Continuous vigilance avoiding stupidity is a full-time discipline. I would create checklists, systems, and habits to prevent recurring mistakes. Avoidance is not passive, it is strategic. At 25, every error avoided compounds faster than any investment gained. By mastering avoidance of stupidity at 25, I would protect every asset, every skill, every relationship. This ensures that when I deploy capital, energy, and talent in the next decades, there is nothing wasted. Discipline plus compounding plus avoidance of stupidity is the foundation of lasting wealth. At 25, I would understand that wealth without freedom is meaningless. The ultimate goal is not just money, it is control over your time, your decisions, and your life. Everything I have built in my 20s, the mental clarity, the skills, the first $100,000, the systems, and the avoidance of stupidity serves this purpose. 1. Aligning skills, investments, and relationships. I would position every effort to multiply over decades. Skills that generate income, investments that compound, and relationships with disciplined, successful people. At 25, every choice I make should align with long-term leverage. This alignment turns small advantages into exponential outcomes by the time I'm 45 or 55.2. Leverage time and compounding time is the ultimate ally if used wisely. I would understand that small, consistent actions taken at 25 compound into enormous advantages decades later. Reading, learning, networking, investing, and refining habits, these are all long-term bets. Patience magnifies everything. Impatience destroys it. Point 3. Building freedom early. Freedom is the ability to act rationally without external constraints. By maintaining discipline, avoiding stupidity, and compounding my efforts, I would create options, the freedom to invest, to innovate, and to take advantage of opportunities. By 35, I would have real financial freedom. By 45, strategic influence. And by 55, control over almost every aspect of my life. Point 4. Strategic patience. Most young people act impulsively. I would act strategically. I would build a long-term trajectory where every decision supports the next decade. Strategic patience is not waiting, it is preparing the ground while others chase instant gratification. The results are invisible at first but catastrophic for those who ignore the timeline. 5. Creating a legacy. Wealth at 25 is a tool. By 35, 45, and 55, that wealth can shape influence, opportunity, and impact. I would use the systems, discipline, and compounding habits to not only secure personal freedom, but to create lasting legacy assets, knowledge, and relationships that extend beyond myself. 6. Avoiding complacency even after building wealth. The danger is complacency. I would continue refining systems, learning, and making rational decisions. Complacency erodes advantage. Vigilance compounds it. At 25, I would install habits that prevent stagnation and encourage continuous improvement for decades. 7. Thinking in probabilities. Every decision at 25 should be made with an understanding of probability. Risk, reward, and opportunity must be evaluated rationally. Most people gamble blindly. I would make calculated moves that maximize expected value. Over time, rational decision-making compounds into near certainty of success. 8. Health and energy as assets. Money is useless without energy and health. At 25, I would invest in physical and mental health as aggressively as in skills and financial capital. Energy compounds too. It allows me to work longer, think clearer, and take advantage of opportunities others miss. 9. Continuous learning and mental model. Learning never stops. The mental models I adopt at 25 would continue to guide decisions for decades. I would study history, human behavior, economics, and business relentlessly. Knowledge compounds. The frameworks I internalize now become the tools I use to avoid mistakes, seize opportunities, and outperform peers consistently. 10. Final integration if I followed every step from destroying wrong ideas. Building skills, earning, saving, investing, creating systems, avoiding stupidity, and thinking long-term. By my mid-30s, I would be far ahead of most people. By 45, the compounding effect of every rational decision would create freedom, power, and influence few achieve. And by 55, my life would be nearly unstoppable. If I were 25 again, I would do exactly this: eliminate bad habits, master mental models, acquire high-leverage skills, earn aggressively, save and invest ruthlessly, build systems, avoid stupidity, and think in decades, not days. The world rewards those who act rationally, patiently, and consistently. Luck is a multiplier, not a creator. Knowledge compounds, discipline compounds, avoiding mistakes compounds, and all of it starts at 25. Remember this: you are responsible for your life. Every choice you make now echoes for decades. Build wisely, act boldly, and think long-term. There are no shortcuts. There are no excuses. But if you commit, if you follow these principles, the life you want and the freedom, wealth, and influence you deserve is achievable. Start now. Don't wait. The first step you take today compounds into a lifetime of advantage.